Hi everybody, welcome to Caketastic Cakes. It's Jen and I'm going to show you how to make a Sonic the Hedgehog cake with a gumpaste Sonic on top. Now before we begin, if you guys need any tools or supplies that you see me using, if you check the description below you should find links that may be able to help you out. Okay, now I'm going to start with a cake. I made a single cake, it's 6 inches across, I made 2 of them, stacked them up, and then I made a third one here that I cut in half as you saw. And now I put the one part on top of the other and then cut diagonally from the highest point on one corner all the way down to the counter surface on the other. So I've got a nice ramp. This is going to become the ramp that goes up in front of the cake because it's supposed to be based off of Sonic the Hedgehog video games that, I'm sure most of us are familiar with from our childhood. I got it free with my Sega Genesis, if that puts me in a certain age group. Then you figured me out. Now, anyway, in order to put it together, I just cut a curve out of the center that you saw me do. I cut it so it was real close to the edge on one side, the top side, and then left it broad and flat on the other side. So it was more like a ramp. You go up to the ramp and then it connected into the top. As you can see, I took my 2 pieces apart, iced them, stuck them against the cake, put them together with the second piece, and then ice that as well. And now if there's any real discrepancy in the slant of the cake, the rise over the run or whatever, then you can fix it with the icing. You just smooth it out, spackle it if you will, make it nice and smooth and rampy. So that's all I did here. I just connected it to the other cake. I had my first cake in the fridge. I don't know if you need to know that or not, but I did, and let it set up so it was nice and firm. And now we're moving on to decorating the cake. All right, this is going to be the blocks that go on the sides. I just used ivory and copper colors. And this is fondant, not gumpaste, it's fondant. So I used one size square, made a whole bunch of squares, and then just started sticking them on. I held them up to the bottom there of the ramp, used my knife to mark out the edge that needed to be cut off so it would be kind of more even with the ramp's angle. And went from there, just back and forth, stick them on, and just keep on going with it all around, and it makes a really nice effect. Try to not misshape your squares when you lift them up. They do stretch a little bit if they stick to the counter at all, so you got to be kind of careful. Try to keep your lines nice and straight. That's really one of the main tricky parts, just keeping them nice and straight. And just keep filling them in. As you hit the ramp, you're going to have to cut your angles again. Just keep stacking as you go. And I don't know how many of you guys remember like the old school Sonic the Hedgehogs, like the one that I had with the Sega Genesis. But yeah, I just remember playing the game and then having to stop, and then you'd lose it all, and then you'd have to start over at the very beginning. And one time in my life I beat the game and it was glorious, and then it was over. And I just never played it again. But anyway, okay, here's the cake. It was all done. You saw all the squares all the way around, lined up perfectly. It was coincidence, I gotta say. I'm usually not that lucky in my square measurements. I usually have a little rectangle filling in the gap somewhere. These are going to be the grass that goes with the level. I made the 2 colors as you saw, the light and dark green. And I used just a leaf cutter mold shape that I had, just to get that kind of oblong shape. If you don't have it, just make ovals, whatever you got. It'll work out just fine. As long as it's different colors of the grass, it'll be perfect. I'm putting them on the ramp first because I figured that would be better. And I'm just alternating. They're overlapping a little bit, as you can see. I trim off in the back anything that's, too long. And then just keep on going. This is going to go all the way around in a circle, and you're not going to have to see all of it because I wouldn't do that to you. But the idea is, see, I have a little bit overlapping because you can see the edge. My squares don't go all the way to the top, which is fine because the grass overhangs anyway. So thank you, Sega Genesis creators, or whoever it is who made Sonic the Hedgehog. Pretty sure it wasn't Sega Genesis. Whoever it was, they did it right. So there you go. You see I filled it all around this edge, and then I just made another layer in the center. And now we're going to put it aside, and I'm going to show you how I made my gold rings that go up the ramp and around the top. This is going to be gum paste now. I took gold colored gum paste, made my circles, made a slightly smaller circle inside, Press them real careful. Make sure you center them as best you can, which is kind of hard to do because I have yet to find the circle cutters that are perfectly circular and not slightly misshapen. And then pulling them apart, as you see, makes them lose their shape too. So put them on a paper towel so they can dry. Use your, smaller circle in the center to reshape them. And then put them aside. These guys are so darn thin, they dried really quick, like within an hour. I was able to stick them on the cake, so they won't take too long. So just, keep it in mind. Once they're hard enough, I paint a little bit of water on the bottom, pressed it right against my gum paste, and they stuck like freaking beautifully. I don't know an expression, but it was great. They were perfect. They just stuck on there, and they didn't roll off or fall off like I was afraid they would. They just cooperated, and it was such a lovely experience to have something just cooperate and go right for once when you're trying something new with cakes. So as you can see, I made the rings go up the ramp and around the front a little bit. Lovely, lovely, looking good. Put it aside. Okay, here we go with Sonic now. I printed out Sonic from the internet. I found a picture that I liked of him with his pose, and I'm trimming him out on some nice ivory creamy color. This is going to be the base background for him, so we're going to build from there. I put him on my paper towel. This is all gum paste, by the way, too. And I'm going to start adding his layers now. I cut the shoes off, and I'm doing the red. So just the red first. Cut it out, put it on the form where it goes. Lovely. Do the next one. Cut it out, stick it on. Lovely. Aren't we just coming along here? Now I cut out the blue part of his body, so I cut around the eyes, I cut off his arms, his face, his belly, that kind of thing. And I'm tracing him out on a nice bright blue, because it's got to be blue. And you can see I'm tracing him a little bit fatter than his actual template. But I'm only going fatter on the parts of him that are not on the inside. So you see around the back of his spikes, his tail, his legs, but not his face and belly. Those I'm traced up to the actual edge of the template. And that is because, as you can see here, I wanted it to overhang so I could wrap it around the sides. And this way, when you see the decoration from the side, you're not going to see that skin or that beige color of his coming through. You're going to just see blue on the sides. It makes it look a little cleaner, a little nicer. So once the blue is in place, I stuck it down with some water, using my veining tool to outline his ears, where I'm going to add the beige color later. Outlining his spikes, his eyebrows, a little bit of his bottom leg and everything like that, just to give him a little more detail. And now his eyes. I had cut those out before, so that was no problem. Just trim out some white, nice and thinly rolled. Stick it in place with a little bit of water. Smooth it into the cracks. There you go. Nice and easy. Now, because his face would have been really sunken in, I'm adding another layer of the ivory on top. Just trimmed it out, stuck it in, no problems there. Same thing with his ears. I had pressed in a little bit to make indentations for where the beige would go on his ears, so I just put it right in place, no problem. Alright, now I'm going to add the white of his socks. I just trimmed some white, kind of like a big fat letter U basically, because the blue of his legs goes down into his socks, so you want them to kind of reflect that. Wrap them around the leg. Make sure you put your little lines in there because he comes from the 80s when we all wore our slouch socks. He was very styling. And next I'm moving on to his gloves. More white, same idea. I'm not adding the cuffs of his gloves, I'm just doing the gloves. And once you place them in, you're going to use your veining tools or whatever you got to press down and separate out the fingers. And this will make them look like gloves instead of just like white blobs. Okay, once you get the glove in place, then, using that magical letter U shape again, in the white, you can wrap it around his wrists. And there you go. Put the lines in, make it look good, and then it doesn't look like he's got like crazy swollen arthritis in his wrists. He looks more proper. Same thing with the other glove. I just cut out the glove first, put it on there, using my veining tool to make the lines for his hands. And if you wrap it around the edges like I did, like I traced it out a little wider than need be, you'll have it on the edge so you can use the back of your knife to make indentations for his knuckles and everything, so it makes them a little rounder and makes them look nicer. Put some more of that white gum paste on there for the cuff of his sleeve. Put some lines in to show it wrinkly. There you go. Same thing with his face here. I'm adding a little bit more of that beige color to his arm because otherwise his arm would be sunken in and it would look weird if it was sunken below the blue. And I'm going to do the same thing with his belly. Cut out the piece there. So I've just cut my template into shreds, basically. And just keep building and building. And you see that skinny little arm there? That's going to become a problem later, but you'll see. You'll see. All right, his nose is adorable. I just love it. I don't know why. It's just like a little Mickey Mouse nose. It's skinny at the bottom, rounds off at the top, kind of ovally. Stick it right on the end there. Doing some more white. Here we go. Now we're going to do the straps on his shoes. I could have cut it all the way out, but I was feeling a little bit lazy by this point, and I didn't feel like cutting it all the way out, so I just matched it up on top of the white gum paste, put the lines in where I thought they'd go, and called it a day. Cut it out, match it up, and it worked out just fine. Cut out an extra little square for his one right shoe, left shoe, I'm not sure which one it is, the way his legs are going. But cut out that extra square, put it on the bottom there, and then I'm using my pointy tool to just kind of press in a square. I'm using my knife blade here to make an indentation for the soles of his shoes. And there you go. Now his eye is just the same color blue as his skin. It's very oval shaped. It's very tall and narrow and oval shape. And I'm using a food coloring marker to make a little smile. Put a little pupil, kind of cat-like. Put a little mark on the other eye there that's just barely showing. And I'm using blue here, the blue marker, to just go over all the outlines that I made. So I'm going over his eyebrows again. I'm going around his ears. I went around his body, under his leg as you see there. I'm going to do his big hair spikes just to kind of highlight it a little bit. And there you go. You got Sonic. Like, he looks pretty good, right? Not bad. All right, for the big gold ring he's going to stand in front of, I used thicker gum paste, same gold as before, and made a thick ring. You can't have a thin ring. It's got to be thick enough to support him. So make sure your edges are nice and smooth and lay it out to dry. And these guys have to be dry, like bone dry, like next day dry. So if you want, you can make them a few days ahead before you make the cake because they have to be firm. And here's what I was telling you about before. You see his little arm? It was so skinny and that glove and everything was so heavy, it just fell right off. Not a problem though, because it's going to go on the ring and that will support everything. So I just put him on the ring where I wanted him, added some gold gum paste and lots of water, and then very carefully press down. I say this all the time, you gotta be careful, because I am going to have a Mickey Mouse cake coming out soon where I made some gears, because it's a clubhouse one, and I cracked a gear because I didn't press down carefully enough when I was attaching the sticks, and it was terrible. So anyway, learn from my mistakes here. Okay, press down carefully. Match up where that arm that broke off goes. And honestly, I didn't even really need to add it. I think he looks pretty good the way he is. But I made it, so darn it, they're getting it. Use a little ball of gum paste, press it into place, and gently match it up to his body where it needs to go. There you go. Let it set for a little while. Then you can flip it over. Add your lollipop sticks. I just mashed some gold onto a lollipop stick and wet it down. Press it to the side of the rings carefully because they're uneven, so you could press too far and break something. So go nice and careful. And once these guys set up, stick them in the middle of the cake and bam, you got a freaking cool Sonic the Hedgehog cake, right? So I hope you liked this video and found it helpful. Please like and subscribe. Check out my many other videos I got out there, guys. And as always, thank you for watching Caketastic Cakes.